Hey everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Title Scoop. So this week's going to be a little different because I wanted to talk about a case that was decided by a federal jury on Tuesday. So the case was a class action lawsuit, and the plaintiffs there filed a case against the National Association of Realtors and several large brokerages. Now, this class action alleged that NAR and these brokerages had conspired to artificially inflate commissions paid to real estate agents. And it focused primarily on buyer agents and the commissions that were paid to them and in a transaction and how that was done. Now, the federal jury ended up ruling in favor of the class action plaintiffs and ordered the realtor groups and the brokerages to pay $1.8 billion in damages. And that amount could be tripled under the U.S. antitrust law to more than $5.3 billion. So really big numbers here that we're talking about. Now, this case will certainly be on the radar of any realtors that are in the industry because it's obviously a big case and could change the landscape of what we have known as real estate structure and how commissions have been done really across most of the country. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of the evidence or any of the details because you can Google it. You can put antitrust, commission, NAR, whatever you want to put in there. You're going to find the cases. Every major news portal has lots of information on there. So go ahead if you want to find out more information. You can even go on YouTube and actually probably watch the trial. Now, one reason it interested me is because of the potential antitrust violation, at least initially. The reason that's interesting is because if you've ever been to a land title association meeting, you maybe have heard the word antitrust. Maybe they handed out a sheet that gave you what the antitrust laws were. And that's really just a reminder to say, hey, we're here for a certain purpose and it's not for us to collude, conspire, anything working together or really to harm the industry or harm the consumer. So there's obviously a lot more to it. But that led me down the path of what is the history of antitrust? Where did it come from? When did it start? So really, we're just going to go over a really brief history here. Antitrust laws were put into place, at least initially, to help ensure that the marketplace remained competitive, and it prohibited certain kinds of anti-competitive and unfair business practices. Now, antitrust originally comes from U.S. law, and they were originally passed really to deal with business trusts. So antitrust, business trust. So the first antitrust law was established in the late 1800s, and it was when large monopolies called trusts had control over certain industries. And really at that time it was railroads and then oil production, distribution, things like that. Obviously it's evolved over the years where real estate's affected and most industries and businesses are affected by antitrust now, or not affected, I should say. We have to abide by antitrust laws if we're running a business in the United States. Now, these business trusts used their control in the 1800s to eliminate competitors and dominate markets. So that's why antitrust laws were so critical, because they didn't want that to happen. So today, the business trusts are actually called monopolies, and you've probably heard of that. It's not just a game. It is something on the antitrust laws that we're trying to prevent. We don't want monopolies in the United States because it does promote unfair business practice then, and it's really unfair competition. So obviously the lack of competition creates a situation that could end up in harming the consumer or affecting the entire industry, right? So that's why you might see if there's two large businesses and one's trying to buy the other and they have the majority of that industry's business, they may be prevented from having that happen because it would be a monopoly and that would violate antitrust. Now, I did look up, I thought it would be interesting just to see what has happened maybe recently in our industry, and there was actually quite a few cases. If you want to Google it, you'll find as many as I did, but I wanted to point out a couple just because it was interesting because they were different reasons. So there was a fairly recent one where a title company settled with the AG of their state over illegal no-poach agreements between title insurance companies, and it was $3.5 million is what that settlement was. That was title insurance agreements basically saying, hey, we're not going to poach employees from each other. They had agreements, and those were illegal under the antitrust laws of that state. And it was preventing, the way that it came down really that was explained is it was preventing people from being able to have jobs at other companies because of these no poach agreements. In California, there was a title company who was fined for a violation of anti-inducement laws, which is a branch of antitrust. And that was when an employee was basically offering free services in a networking group. He was doing marketing and social media and various trainings for real estate agents. That was a $1 million fine, and then that person ultimately lost their license and can't get a license for their lifetime, at least in the state of California. I'm not sure if that's federal or not, but I know in the state of California. And then if you look, there's numerous counts of price fixing in multiple states where competitors work together to try to determine prices. That's something you can never do. So that's just something to be aware of. Again, not something that we deal with all the time, but it could in fact affect us. So just wanted to bring it up, make sure everybody kind of knew what it was. and thought it would be a little bit different. So if you guys have questions, obviously let me know. If not, we will see you next week.